There's a conviction in this hush money case. We've seen poll after poll show there is a percentage of independents out there who will say, you know what, a convicted felon, somebody's been convicted in court like this, I can't vote for that guy.
For people out there who say to me, you know, this hush money thing, it's good for Donald Trump. It makes him look like the victim. No, seeing him sit in a courtroom every day and seeing him every day in the news and hearing is not helping him. I could never understand that logic, how somebody who is under indictment for a felony charge and is about to face trial, somehow that's good for them. So it's not, and the numbers show that.
This is political persecution. This is a persecution like never before. Nobody's ever seen anything like it.
You know, at this point, and I mean this very sincerely, I am convinced that the New York justice system is determined to crush Donald Trump, and they'll do whatever it takes, including abusing the law. We've already seen them do it once with the Letitia James case, so they're crushing him financially there. And now it appears they're attempting to remove him altogether from public life by bootstrapping these misdemeanors to felonies, which carry jail time. 4 years, by the way, up to 4 years per charge. So do the math, 34 times 4.
And so really what this election, like all elections, is a battle over the narrative. And we tend to focus and fixate on swing voters. They're very interesting to us. So. But we win or lose elections on the basis of who turns out. Yeah. And seeing a man who could be our commander-in-chief again in a courtroom, falling asleep, on trial, potentially a criminal, convicted as a criminal, that wakes people up and it tunes them in. And it is that narrative that alters people's calculus about whether participating in this election and paying attention to the election is worth it in the first place. And that's what flips the election.
Here's Michael Cohen's problem, and it's Michael Cohen.
I will be in D.C. and in New York, anywhere Mr. Trump deems necessary. I'll be there. I did not want to go to the White House. I was offered jobs.
Not only is Donald Trump not a racist, he believes that all people are part of one race, the human race.
I know what Mr. Trump is. He is a racist, he is a con man, and he is a cheat.
The words the media should be using to describe Mr. Trump are generous, compassionate, principled, empathetic, kind, humble, honest, and genuine.
He is capable of behaving kindly, but he is not kind. He is capable of committing acts of generosity, but he is not generous. He is capable of being loyal, but he is fundamentally disloyal.
So obviously Michael Cohen, then he goes to jail, he comes out and he writes a book, and now he wants to make sure that Donald Trump pays the price.
You know, Michael Cohen has lied, let's talk about this for a second, to the court, to Congress, and to the media. These are all known things. This is their star witness. The entire case hinges on this guy. And I think what's particularly unfair is if the judge in this case is concerned about the appearance of impartiality.
You plan to testify in your trial in New York?
Yeah, I would testify, absolutely. It's a scam. It's a scam. That's not a trial. That's not a trial. That's a scam. They actually took their top guy, one of their top guys, put him into the DA's office to run it, and it's a shame. What they have done is incredible. It's election interference, and it's got to stop. It's a third world country. This country's never done it.
Kerry, I guess the big question is, what is the charge? Like, what is it that the former president is being charged? What's the crime that he committed?
Well, technically, according to the DA, he's being charged with falsifying business records. Except there's one problem. The statute of limitations has ran out on that. So in order to revive that case, he has somehow manufactured these very low-level misdemeanor charges into felonies by saying, well, he falsified those records and to conceal an underlying crime. The problem is no one really understands what the underlying crime is because it's not in the indictment, and Bragg only talked about it afterwards in a press conference and said vaguely that he had violated state and federal election laws.
So to get this straight, we're going into a trial, and his team doesn't even know how to argue this case because they don't know the details.
Right, and that's one of the most troubling aspects of this case.
The biggest thing I worry about are those people that want to be on this jury that are not going to tell the truth, and they're going to say anything to try to get on the jury, to whether it's to become famous, whether it's because they want to convict the president. Picking a jury in this environment is going to be very difficult. And, you know, I'm not sure this judge really understands how hard it is for President Trump to actually get justice in New York City.
In America, we're supposed to have a free and fair justice system, and one of the critical components of that is to know what you're being charged with. The accused has the right to know what they're being accused of, right? That's a hallmark of the Sixth Amendment in the Constitution, something we're all guaranteed to have. And so the fact that Bragg only talked about it after the fact in a press conference, and to look at it, you say, okay, well, if he's concealing a crime and it involves state and federal election law, how could they do that unless somehow Bragg is converting the hush money payments into basically campaign contributions to himself? Like Donald Trump contributed to himself and then didn't report it as such. So Charlie's laughing because it's ridiculous.
So we're talking about a paperwork violation here in the worst case, if he's guilty of it, and he's looking at jail time. There's no victim.
Right.
Would be a victimless.
I've long said that no matter what happens legally, I think Donald Trump's going to win politically. Here's how I see it: acquittal, big victory for Trump. Hung jury, also huge win for Trump. Somehow convicted of a misdemeanor, won't serve time. Trump team will be able to argue that the felony case against him was just political from the start. And even if it's a felony conviction, it's the lowest level felony in the state, so he could escape any jail time. And imagine if he's sentenced to jail time for this case. Then he can really play the victim with a stronger argument. You can see him comparing himself again to Nelson Mandela, but this time actually from a jail cell.
As a non-lawyer, looking at this, I just assume, okay, well, this whole thing really is rigged. How does it, what does the appeal process look like?
Well, if the jury returns a sentence where they convict him in some way of these crimes, then he would appeal that.
Far ahead here. Is that grounds for appeal, that you couldn't get an impartial jury, it should have been removed? I mean, is this already something that's set up for appeal?
Yeah, there's a lot of appealable issues, whether or not to move the venue, for example. If Alvin Bragg feels so confident about his case, he should be willing to move it to upstate New York, where there's a much different mix of people, a much different jury pool. But, they just seem determined to take him to trial in New York City, in Manhattan, in a really difficult environment for President Trump to be successful. Now, on the point of him testifying, obviously his lawyers haven't made that decision yet. Having tried cases myself, you don't determine whether or not to put the defendant on the stand until you know how the evidence comes in and how your case is going. Remember, there's just so many bad legal issues in this. These are not felony claims. The reason they're elevated to felonies is because of this election issue, election finance issue that's already been determined by the Federal Election Commission to not be a violation of law. And so there's just so many issues that this case should not be going to trial on.